I don't know if you want to dissect that before we get into the laundromat side, but that's the quick version to how we got what at the time was our 5th laundromat. And our first laundromat, which had kind of become sort of the stepchild, it wasn't as nice or as profitable as the other 3, was about 2 miles away. But it was on, not literally, but figuratively, was on the other side of the train tracks, the other side of Amelia, Ohio, kind of on the bad side that nobody wants to go to. And I had owned that store for 13 years, and I had done a lot of marketing, fixed it up, made it really nice. And one thing I could never do is convince people to go from the bad side of town to the good side of town. They just didn't matter how much money I spent, how nice I made it. They wouldn't go over there. So we had a profitable business, but I knew that this was the opposite and that people from the bad side of town would easily want to come to the good side of town. And so I bought this property, built a couple $1 million laundromat there, made it really nice, and then simultaneously closed down our first store, which was my baby originally, that I kind of cut my teeth in the industry on. And so I always joke with people that we went from 4 to 5 to 4 laundromats in 2 days. So that's the kind of the quick version of at least the real estate side of things and strategically why we did what we did.
Yeah. Well, just real quick, not to go into the real estate deal too much, but what you're talking about is, it's sort of like this mythical unicorn of real estate investing. Everybody's looking for the seller finance deal, the little to no money down deal. And like you said, it's not super common, but it's out there, right? You got to find the right person in the right situation, and you've got to figure out a way to make it work for you and for them. And you can find those deals. But the reason I wanted to come back to it is because that's not limited to only real estate, right? If you're buying a laundromat, the same thing can be true. You can get the seller finance. Again, it's not everywhere. You're not going to find the best deal every time some seller finance is offered, but the right situations are out there. And the only way you find these deals is by being out there, by meeting people. This was somebody you already had a relationship with, right? A landlord of your other laundromat. You can't sit behind a computer and browse online and expect to find these deals. You have to be out there meeting people, meeting brokers, meeting owners, getting the word out about what you're looking for, and that's when opportunities present themselves. So I just know, for me, I spend a lot of time waiting for, looking for things, and I have this sort of philosophy: anything that you can do at home sitting on the couch in your underwear is probably not going to land a big opportunity in your lap, right? So if you're literally, or if this is like, we're talking about showering, we're talking about Speedos, I'm in the underwear now, this is a very risque episode already.
That's how we roll.
Yeah. But that's probably not how opportunities are going to find it. You have to get out there and meet people. You have to get out there and take some action. You have to get out there and network and let people know what you're trying to do, so that when opportunities come up, people are thinking of you because you've let them know, you've met them, you've built the relationships with them. So I just want to point that out because I think people are going to hear that and be like, dude, he got so lucky. And you kind of did.
That all the time. Yeah.
But you also made the luck happen, right? By having the relationship and by doing all the work of the other 4 laundromats beforehand, and then also by negotiating for 6 months, on this deal. So it doesn't just happen. It's not going to fall in your lap. No. Spoiler alert for anybody out there. It's just not going to fall in your lap.
Well, and I'll point out one other thing, Jordan. I'll be, full disclosure on this. A big part of the reason this happened is because I had already been in the laundromat business for 12 years at this point, and I already had a relationship. And every laundromat that I had taken over in the prior 12 years, I had taken from a pretty bad state of disrepair, varying levels, and made them some of the nicest, probably the nicest laundromats on the east side of Cincinnati. They weren't perfect. But so, this involved a lot of trust on his part, and it came from 12 years of work. So one, I don't want to suggest that if you're a newbie, you can't do this, but I want to be very clear that it's much, much harder to do if you're new. Financing companies will give me 100% financing on pretty much anything, especially equipment, in this industry now. Even if the math doesn't really work out, they'll still give it to me. Why? Because I've earned their trust. I've never been late on a payment. I've borrowed probably $5 million at this point, and paid all of it back on time with interest. So sometimes we have to crawl before we walk. Now, I don't want to suggest that those deals are only there for us veterans, because that's not true, but they are more prominent. But the reason that some of those deals come our way, the reason he wanted to work with me on another project is because of the results from the previous project in another one of his buildings. And so sometimes I tell people in coaching calls all the time, sometimes we have to stair step this. Sometimes we make things sound easy. And for me, it honestly kind of was that easy. I mean, we did negotiate. I didn't just give in. It did take 5 or 6 months to get the deal closed. He didn't give in just overnight. But the other side of the equation is I had been working for 12 years to build trust with him. So even though I had a conversation and let that conversation marinate for 2 weeks, and then he came back and gave in, he did that because of the previous work I'd done for 12 years. So he recognized that I knew how to run a laundromat, that I was a, prominent person in the community that people respected. My dad's a former mayor of Amelia. I mean, all these things factor in. So we talk about all the time collaboration and reputation and integrity and character and work ethic and all these things. I couldn't have pulled that project off when I was a newbie. Doesn't mean you can't pull off similar projects, but I couldn't have pulled that one off. So I don't want it to sound like kind of a pipe dream, too good to be true. It was a result of 12 years worth of work that gave me the opportunity to do more work and at a better level. And obviously now he would, probably, I don't think he has any other properties, but he would now that he's seen what I've turned this into, this was kind of the holy grail for both him and me. So maybe there's some inspiration in there. Maybe it helps a few people. It wasn't a perfect situation. I probably made it sound easier than it was. I've gotten pretty good at negotiating over the years. And by the way, I own 4 laundromats in Cincinnati, Ohio right now. But if I wanted to, I probably could own close to 25. I've been intentionally kind of picky and choosy. There's been deals I could have done that would have made me money, but wouldn't have been worth my time in the long run, and I've turned down those deals. Sometimes being patient and waiting for the right opportunities to pounce is a skill in and of itself that I'm always not very good at. I'm not a real patient person, but I've always said if I'm going to do this, I want to do it at a high level. I want to be really successful. I want to serve the community, but I want to do it in a way that I can operate at a high level. And if you take over a mediocre location or a market that's somewhat saturated but not oversaturated, I wanted those undersaturated markets. I wanted those opportunities where I could go full bore and not have to question the risk and the ROI associated with that. So these all come, I'm rambling a little bit, but these all come kind of full circle. So maybe there's some, lessons in there for people. If you are a newbie, these things are going to be harder, but you have to start somewhere.